Older people of Reddit, what is something you've done in life that would shock your children, grandchildren, younger family members if they found out? Not me, but my mom. At my mom's funeral, I found out that she and her friend stole a plane when they were 16. I was ducking floored when I heard that. I knew she was a no bullshit person, but I clearly didn't know the extent. Grew up boxing. Fought in an illegal bare knuckle league for money until I was married. Did you have a cool street name? I did not. Just my name. It would be easier to list the things I didn't do. All the usual 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. In spades. In groups. And in the altogether. Which is why my grandson has yet to be able to put anything over on the old woman. No matter how clever he thinks he is. Sorry, kid. I know the symptoms of every different kind of high you can get. From the outside and the inside. And I have ears to hear the almost silence of you and your study buddy not exactly studying. Not to mention a nose that can detect trace minerals at 6 meters. Let alone what you two are perfuming the room with. Why do you think those condoms miraculously appeared on your desk? I was addicted to heroin for a while. I don't think it's something that I'll always keep from her. I'm just waiting for the right time to tell her. Stay clean, buddy. Congrats on sobriety. My kids are just hitting their teens. Before I met their mother, I had her MMFMFM with a pregnant woman and her husband. My wife knows about it, but I'm pretty sure my kids would be shocked. Edit, till proper threesome terminology. This is almost exactly why I asked. I did something similar, except I was a female and not pregnant. Picturing me getting older. My children becoming adults. It makes me laugh knowing they'd never consider I would do anything like that. I watched some girl stuff a bottle up in herself. Then my cousin had sex with her. We started a fire right by a firehouse. We walked to a store for cigarettes and got robbed on the way back. Assuming all of this happened in the same night makes for one hell of a roller coaster. Define older. When I was about 21. I made an improvised gum and blew up a random van in the middle of downtown. Chose it specifically because it was clearly gutted and abandoned with nobody around for quite a ways. Got caught. Interrogated. Apartment searched. Eventually confessed. Cops asked why I chose that van. Repeated what I said above. They said, so you weren't trying to hurt someone? I said no. Absolutely not. Just wanted to see if it worked. Turns out the van had been appraised at $50 and they couldn't find the owner. Cops said never. Ever do that again. We'll call you in a few days to see what's going to be done about this. That was 17 years ago. Still waiting for the call. So yeah. Made a gong. Blew up a vehicle in the middle of town. Caught. Let go. To be white in the Midwest. Edit. Cheat. Maybe it was longer. I do know it was not long before 9/11. Otherwise I'm sure it would have gone much differently. I just find it really funny when my kids think I don't get modern memes or internet culture. They need to realize that their surprised Pikachu and change my mind guy will same day be just as old as my all your base are belong to us and Badger. I used to be a very active and somewhat prominent member of the BDSM community. I helped organize events and was DM for a few more, as well as a participant in even more. I've beaten people black and blue and they love me for it. If my son ever asks me why I am so good at making things out of leather, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lie about it. He just better stay out of my closet because some things just can't be unseen. I spent a night in jail for getting in a bar fight during spring break. I recently found out my dad was in jail. In his 20s for something alcohol related. I'm 30 now and it had never crossed my mind before to ask. I found out my dad had a shit ton of deuce. Drove for a year and a half on a suspended license. Was in a gang. And probably fathered some half-siblings for me that I'll never know. Dad was an accountant for the state when I was growing up. You'd never guess he did anything but numbers. My grandma stole a cop car in her early 20s. She's a badass and I love her very much. Reminds me of my ex's grandma talking about all of the coke she used to do. And that older sex she had with sailors is what helped her stay skinny. I was really wild in my 20s. And I also used to steal abused animals in the middle of the night if the owners wouldn't surrender them to me. I'm not ashamed of that and it's kind of a passed on family tradition. Edit. Outside animals. A relative of mine is one of the most stunning, classy, and well-kept women I have ever known. I was shocked to learn she has been jailed and or ticketed for trespassing umpteen times throughout her life in a number of states. The most recent arrest was 7 years ago. She scopes out and takes pictures of puppy mills and other places that do illegal stuff with animals. She told me that one time she had gotten back in her car and the cop was basically waiting for her. I don't remember exactly how she said the interaction went, but the conclusion was the officer let her go, and conveniently didn't notice or take her camera. As a result, she had enough evidence to help get the puppy mill shut down. I used to be a stripper gram, was from 18 to 29. All through this time I was with my HSBF and I'm now married to him decades on. I am now a rosy-cheeked, middle-aged housewife with 2 teenage kids. My previous job is known by older family members, but the kids don't have a clue. As far as they know I did agency work in my 20s. My daughter would be mortified if she found out. Lol. No regrets. It supported him through college and we were able to buy a house at 27 with no family assistance whatsoever. And I also had a lots of dress-up outfits for 6. Not something I've done, but it's a confession my grandpa made on his deathbed. We were watching football on the TV and my mum asked what he did as a kid for fun. He used to blow up frogs. Stick a straw inside and blow. Mum, oh but you didn't do that every day did you? Grandpa mumbling, NOOO. Every other day. Edit. Let me just add that he was born in the 1930s. They didn't have a lot of money and this was quite a common thing for kids to do back then. I also thought it was quite disgusting at first, but my grandpa was a great person, gave loads of money to charity etc. Blowing up frogs may not have been nice, but he's most certainly not a loser. I sucked a big dick for a watch once. Do you still have a watch? The next guy he met needed a watch. At 50 years old. Let's just say that I'm thankful smartphones, cameras, didn't exist during the 90s. That entire decade was a blur. The wife and I are swingers. Though our adult kids know about our hobby. I'm always curious how people get into this and how you end up approaching someone else your first time. Lots of dumb shit. Like the time we burned down a playground. No, I am not proud. Yes, I am ashamed. Or the time I stole a bike from a mailman and burned the thing in the woods. Shame really. Or the time we blew a hole in a brick wall. Who TF had access to those explosives, and stole wine and beer from a warehouse. Or stole mopeds and cars. And all the Drew Gus. Oh, the Drew Gus. Got life turned around 15 years ago. Never looking back. Except in threads about dumb shit I've done, that is. I was so well behaved and never put a foot wrong. Never did anything untoward all through my teens. 20s and 30s. I turned 40 and all hell broke loose. Most of my friends. All my relatives and kids think I'm some perfect little homemaker who wouldn't bark back at a dog. Totally unrepentant and having the time of my life. What's more, I appreciate it and enjoy it with no self-consciousness or guilt that I probably would have felt as a younger person. I may also have a bit more self-preservation and common sense about it too in a weird way. And I can afford it now. Worked in a brothel for one night. Not as a prostitute but as security. I was 16 at the time and wanted to make some money to use to go to raves every weekend. I asked my gangster friend if he had anything I could do. He said he'd get back to me. A few days later I get a call that 2 of the guys working security wanted the night off, so me and my buddy took their spot. My job was to watch the security cameras and make sure it was only our van full of customers coming back in and not some rival gangs coming to rob the place. It was more of a just for show job because he told me if I really saw a gang coming, just hop the fence and run for it. Anyway, 2 vans would constantly pick up customers. I would spot it on the camera and open the door for them. It was quite fascinating watch the types of customers coming in and how they choose to sleep with. 2 things in particular stuck with me all these years. There were about 7 women. 6 in their 20s and 1 that was clearly in her 30s, and as you would guess, she was chosen to go upstairs the least. There was also a group of construction workers who clearly just got off work. And when the girls all lined up, the men actually started being polite with one another like you can go first type of thing. Ultimately, 3 of them chose the same girl. 2 chose the leftovers but not the poor 30-year-old. Was quite gross. Was a one-time thing. I forgot how much I was paid for my 6 hours of work. Might have been $80 100. Saw added things that stuck with me ever since. Fortunately, my kid was too young to remember the time he helped my husband armor all shine me in my latex dress. In preparation for a dungeon party. You look like a superhero. That's right. Kid, just don't ask what my powers are. Farm boy, death was as much a part of life as anything else. The full chicken slaughter was just another chore like hosing out the stables or putting hay in the feed trough. When the itch we kept on the premises had pups, we'd take our choice and drown the rest in a water trough. Or just smack them with the back of a shovel and bury them. It was necessary since there would have rapidly been far too many to feed or give a humane amount of attention to, and would only contribute to the feral population. You could not give them away since just about every farm within 100 miles had the same problem. Of course, you mention this at all to younger people who aren't from rural areas and they flip out. When culling is just a chore. You don't have to be some kind of bloodthirsty psychopath to do it. It's normal until you blunder into the wrong audience one day and people liken you to Hitler himself and suggest you should be put to death. I understand better now, but it's quite hostile and shocking at first. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is why older folks are always saying, don't you know where your food comes from? In first grade, me and my friend would take our survive knives to school. These were not plastic knives but full-grade military knives complete with sharpeners, hooks for fishing, compass, etc. We would spend our recess sharpening the knives, trying to get them to be as sharp as possible so we could cut sticks and twigs to make nice walking sticks. We never got picked on. Gave my boyfriend a BJ in his Corvette coming back from a trip to Myrtle Beach. Doing 80 miles per hour and passing a joint back and forth between us. Truckers could see us, we didn't care. I put a God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve bumper sticker on my car during the Great Gays in the Military debate of '93. Someday my grandchildren will learn about how that grandpa spent his 20s getting drunk, high tripping and screaming about gutting and raping corpses in various death metal bands. I can't wait. I let my neighbor's cat into the house. I was sick, lonely, and feeling sorry for myself, so I wanted the company. The little asshole stole my fur tail butt plug off my bed when I wasn't looking, and brought it home to my neighbor. My neighbor posted a photo of the butt plug on a local gossip page on Facebook with our street name, asking someone to pick up their butt plug. It got thousands of likes and tens of thousands of comments in the span of a couple of hours. Literally the entire ducking town saw my butt plug. The post got so much notoriety that a local radio station talked about it briefly a few days later. During the time it took for this whole thing to blow over, I spend equal amounts of time laughing at the whole ordeal and shaking from fear that someone might link me to the butt plug publicly. Nobody knows it was mine. And that's the story of my famous asshole. Not me, but my aunt. Sweetest old lady alive. She's a grandma. We had to casually explain to her that crank means meth. Apparently she was just smoking that shit occasionally back in the 70s and had no idea what it was. My grandpa told me he would bring fireworks to play when he was a teenager and scare the teacher. Why can't we do this anymore? I have teenage stepkids and try to be as transparent about my escapades as a youngster as possible. I regularly embarrass them, but I am hoping they hear the reasons why I wish I had done something different. This is not always conservative wisdom. One confession is wishing I had just had sex with first husband rather than marry him. That conservative southern upbringing combined with a high sex drive led to some shitty marital decisions. My mom did a lot of this with me. Intellectually I knew about her past, but it almost seems like she was telling stories about a different person, because she would never dream of repeating those bad decisions. It was like another life. My grandmother, on the other hand, always worked very hard to project southern conservative perfection. Was more than a little shocked she had her own string of shitty marital decisions in her past. My parents-in-law's infant son will never know that my wife and I met in a party house and got clothes after the house we were staying at got raided by the police while she was tripping on shrooms. We got released at the same time. We weren't arrested, just detained, and I hung out with her till she calmed down. 6 years later we're married, have a kid, 8 months today, and are buying a house. When I was 17 back in 75, I walked into the house and my dad had my 13-year-old sister pinned to the kitchen table with one hand and a bag of pot in the other. He was screaming, "WTF, did you get this?" She finally blurted out a name and my dad turned to me and said, "Go get him. If I do, I'll go to prison." I went and found the guy in the parking lot of the local swimming pool dealing pot to underage girls. I left him lying in convulsions. I almost beat him to death. By the time I got home, his parents were on the phone telling my dad they were going to have me arrested for attempted murder. My dad told his dad, "If you have my son arrested, I will press charges against your drug-dealing son for statutory rape." Back in the 70s, that was a charge people took seriously and we never heard another word about it. I think about it all the time on how life would have changed so drastically had he died. I broke my arm while arm wrestling in a gay bar. I was divorced and hadn't been out in months. 2 friends said, "Hey, come with us." What's the worst thing that could happen? I almost won, but my arm snapped. Well, I found out a bunch of stuff about my dad recently from some of his old buddies. I'm basically a younger version of him. He is an exec at a $1 billion a year construction company. Very straight-edged, straight-laced, timid dude, no Drew Gus, doesn't really drink. When he was younger he used to hang around with a motorcycle club. One time he stabbed some dude in a bar fight. He also used to sell and transport narcotics. Yeah, I was super shocked. My brother and I tease and harass my dad all the time about being wimpy. Oh dear. Not that old yet, but I'm a high school teacher, so I'm sure a lot of what I've gotten up to would be very surprising to say the least. I worked as an exotic dancer, escort, dominatrix, and I had a sugar daddy for a while, although not at the same time. I traveled the world and looking back at it did some very irresponsible stuff. I've lived as a squatter. I have been arrested while protesting, not charged because, you know, it's legal to protest and we won the case. For about a year I was in a relationship with 2 people who were also in a relationship with each other. I'm 61. I nearly died in several different accidents. I'm lucky to be alive. First joint at 14. First blotter at 15. That might surprise my nieces and nephew. But maybe not. The usual 70s college PHIV sexcapades. Had a long relationship with a woman 20 years older when I was in my 20s. You know, stuff like that. I'm pretty straight-laced kind of guy. I've just found life easier when I obey the rules. And everyone knows this. My family and a lot of my friends would be pretty shocked to know I spent 18 months as part of a throuple. I'm the last person anyone thinks would ever have a threesome. Much less a couple times a week for a year and a half. I had a better one, but the family found out about it. No one in my life knew I had kids. I mean, I had made private sperm donations to a couple of loose acquaintances, which isn't the same. But there are a couple of half-me's around that no one knew about for a while.